Hey, Peace family, we're back. And in this lesson, the objective is for students to learn what is a business model, the importance a business model plays in your business, how to create one, and the components of a business model. And so we're going to dive into all those factors today to make sure you guys are proficient and efficient as entrepreneurs, right? Or one day, whenever you are ready to take this journey, you will be fully equipped. And so let's talk about the business model. What is it, right? So every single business has a business model, right? And so we're going to talk about, again, those components. We've broken it down to another cool acronym for us, right? So that's PRCP. And we're going to tackle the first P, which we already talked a lot about, which are our products, our goods, and or services. And this is an important part of building your business model is really identifying what products, goods, and services that you want to bring to the world. And with that, you first got to, that's where we talked about the burning desire and what your passions are or what you have identified in the marketplace. So one thing about understanding that product, good, or service, whatever it is that you want to offer as an idea or concept, whether it be an app or a website or whatever it may be, it's really looking at, where's there any viability? Where am I inspired? Where is there an inconvenience? Where is there a solution to a problem? Where is there already a working model that I can piggyback? We certainly believe in not always having to recreate the wheel, but you may see someone who's doing something effective in the marketplace, but that just could be innovated a little better. It could be streamlined a little more. Maybe it could be a cheaper price point within it. But you figured out that there was some kind of product, good, or service that you wanted to bring, and now we need to figure out our revenue sources, right? Which ways we can actually make money from these product, goods, and services. So the R in our PRCP is revenue sources. And so I want to give you guys just a little insight to different ways in which your business can create capital, right? Can create revenue. So in our revenue sources, where our revenue comes from is a lot going to be dictated on what PGS that we decided on, right? And so I'm going to just give you some examples so you guys have something to kind of grip your mind around. There's two primary ways in which your business will receive revenue. There'll be two broad customer bases as revenue sources. So one will be from other businesses or institutions, right? Businesses, right? Organizations, right? So you'll end up seeing revenue up to your business either from institutions, businesses, or organizations, or it will be what we call direct to customer. And so, again, depending on your service, I had a coaching client that I spoke to recently who had a very, very niche business where he dealt with national retailers, right? And this is the cool part about business is that there's so many businesses all around us if we approach life and we look at life through the right paradigm and the right lens. So this particular individual, he has a business model that simply puts bicycles together and grills together and lawn equipment for major retailers. That's his business model. He's not dealing with customers. Well, he is dealing with customers, but I guess it depends on, and that's going to be our next C, is kind of explaining customers a little further. But he was dealing what we call business to business. So it's called B2B. You'll often see it kind of tagged as business to business. That means his business directly, right? His company is doing direct business with an institution, another business, and they're doing direct business with him, right? And so he had a niche business offering a service which was, hey, I'm trained, and I'll be trained and put some systems together to be able to put bicycles together. That was it, simple model. There was another friend of mine, years back, mentor of mine, who introduced me to one of his family friends. She was the heiress, right? She was the recipient of a legacy of her grandfather was the guy who invented the little plastic piece that goes on the end of the shoestring. So you look at most shoestrings, there's a little plastic piece that kind of tightens the end of the shoestring. Well, someone invented that. Someone saw a need in the marketplace and invented that. He patented that idea, and now I believe they might get like a penny or even less than a penny, but for every shoestring sold in the world, right? And so, again, saw a need in the market, saw a way to make life more convenient or easier, saw a problem that he could solve, and he solved it. But everything has that same kind of impact, whether that be from the markers we use or to boards or to ways to innovate, even these kinds of flip chart screens, to the video, the tablet device that you maybe watch from this lecture from. All these things have components. They have products, goods, and services attached, and all these things have the ability to be able to be some kind of revenue source to some kind of either institution, organization, or to a direct consumer. And so we have to choose what product or good or service or what kind of need we want to fulfill in the world, and then who we want to bring that need to, right? It's all about defining your business model, defining your product, good, or service, right? And understanding that product, good, or service based on where you want to, in most cases, solve a problem, fulfill a need, expand an idea, or bring something innovative or new to the market. Understanding where your revenue source is going to come from. Who is that PGS targeting? Is it a B2B, business to business, or is it a B2C, business to consumer or customer, right? And so we're talking about a ground-facing customer. And so on our C piece, we're going to be talking about our customer base and who are they, right? And so in diving into our direct customer base, if it's not business to business, then we got to figure out who's that constituency, who most needs. We're going to talk about this later on as we develop companies, products, services, initiatives in our CPSI later on in our course. But the one way that we try to look at customers, and part of my ideology philosophy that we teach and we embody here, is who most needs or is most impacted by my P, S, or G, right? So who most needs or is who is most impacted by my product, good, or service? And that's really a great way to work backwards to identify who your customer is going to be. Is what organization it may be. It may be a governmental agency. It may be a private business or organization. It may be a nonprofit. It may be a religious base. It may be a financial base, sorority, fraternity, right, group, or ethnicity, or ethnic class, or working class, or financial class, or athlete versus entertainer, right, whatever it is, who most needs or is most impacted by my services. And sometimes you'll have a service that seems pretty broad and general, and you'll say everyone, right? So say you have video services, you're a videographer, right? And that's your service. You want to bring, video services to the world. And you're gonna say, well, everyone can use video services. But no, let's drill down and ask ourselves who most needs, right, video services. So yes, everyone at some time may use or could use a video service, but is a 65-year-old retiree grandma at home who doesn't have any social media or doesn't have any business aspirations, is she in most need of your video services? Or is the 22-year-old aspiring pop star and dancer and performer, would they more likely need your PSG, or in this case, your S services? So this will help you drill down by consistently asking yourself this question. everyone needs wealth education, but who most needs or will be most impacted by the offering of wealth education or RBCs, right? And so this will help you, again, target who your potential customer base is, and this will help you define and organize a lot of your marketing, a lot of your targeting, the staff that you want to hire. This will help you dictate some of your brand colors, your brand fonts, right? Because you're going to be thinking about everything within your business, because mind you, this is, again, packaging your business model, right? Identifying your business model. So understanding your customer base is going to have one of the deepest impacts into how your whole business infrastructure is created, and how everything through your business should be a reflection of being being advantageous or targeting or being attractive or alluring towards this particular customer base. Because again, this is going to be your revenue source, is your customers. Now, if your business is other businesses, right? Whether that's consultation for other businesses. For instance, I have another associate of mine who runs a similar organization. It's not a wealth education institute, but it is a online type of university. And what they strictly offer is sales training courses, but not just sales training for everyone who wants to sell, because there's many companies who want a sales training course, but they picked a specific niche industry that sells windows, and specifically does not take on personal customers, only will take on organizations who must apply to get his business-to-business services for training their employees and staff on how to best sell windows. And he has a niche business, over 3-4 dozen customers who not only pay for his online trainings, but his personal trainings and regional workshops and everything else by finding a specific niche in the industry and then targeting, marketing, infiltrating, if you will, and courting that particular customer and clientele. But in that case, it's not a customer as a ground customer constituent, but it is a business. And being very, very clear about that from the beginning will save you a lot of time, money, and energy. The broader, and everyone should write this down, the broader your customer base, the more expensive your operation, right? In most cases, the broader your customer base, the more expensive your operation, because now your advertising dollars have to be spent in a broader range. Your marketing dollars and marketing efforts have to be spent in a broader range. The amount of initiatives or products or services or staff to support all that is going to probably be increased and be greater and greater. So the more niche and what we call lean you could become, slim, right? You want to be as lean and as focused as possible, the better for your business. Now, our P and our PRCP is, how is your business in this model going to be paid for, and how are you going to pull it off, right? So when you sit back and say, hey, I love this concept, man. I love this product, this good, this service, this idea. I can see exactly where the revenue source is, where the money comes from. We've identified our customer base within this particular idea. Love it. But now, how are you paying for all this? What are the finances behind this? And then how do you pull it off, right? How do you package it all together? So this is where you start to see, okay, and we'll talk about research of a business plan later in our lessons, but we're going to look at what our customer base is, and we're going to see how the revenue flows, and we're going to see exactly what our product is, so we know the crux of our business model. But then we have to say and really figure out realistically and get a budget. It's going to be involved with creating a budget, because you're not going to know how much to pay for, or how much you need to pay for it until you do that budget. And we'll work on some of those financial analysis with you just in a few short lessons. But you have to have at least a general mind frame of, do I have the capital myself already? Is it in my savings, or at least some portion of it? Is it a 401k to IRA transfer to a self-directed IRA through a checkbook LLC to fund my business or operation or whatever that might be? Is it going to be pulling equity out of my home through a refinance home equity line of credit or home equity loan? Is it going to be a syndication of partnerships that allow me to be able to fund this? Am I going to, and have I been working on my credit to be able to leverage business credit, which we'll cover later, and what you learned in your C of the RBCs? Is it going to be business credit that's going to allow me to be able to fund this operation? Am I applying at a traditional bank for a loan? Am I using private equity or venture capitals or hedge funds? Am I using an SBA loan? All these things are going to be a function of you understanding, how can this get paid for? And we're going to break down many of those things we just mentioned and rattled off. We're going to be talking about them all throughout this course. So what you don't know now, obviously you can research and look up, but we will make sure that you are very, very well informed and educated on what you need to know in order to, pull all this off. But this is, again, first, the structure of your business model. Now, the importance of having this business model, this, again, allows you to be able to go do what you had a vision for and to be intentional about it. It's very hard to be intentional about something that's very broad, very ambiguous, and very vague. So the business model, right, the purpose of it is to allow you to be very specific, to allow you to be very niche, to give you the framework for building out on your business plan and your marketing and your infrastructure and all the things you need. So this is really the foundation of where you start to bring that burning desire and burning vision to life. Is going to be by first establishing your business model. And secondly, you'll get into more advanced parts of your business plan. So I want to give you all some things to think about in that business model establishment. And so we're going to use another acronym of ours, right? SOLVE. And so outside of any of these acronyms being in your lessons, I personally recommend that you guys kind of write some of this stuff out yourself so that you are getting the repetition and the memory repetition of writing them and just getting very, very familiar. And so first, let's talk about that piece of solutions. This is going to help you. This formula here is going to help you to identify really the key of even building a business model. The first thing we talked about are the PGSs, the products, goods, and services. If you don't know what you're selling or what you're offering the world, there's no way to be able to bring in any revenue. So you must identify the PGSs first, right? So products, goods, and services. Here's how we find them. So one is looking at product, goods, and services that offer solutions to the world, solutions to organizations, solutions to customers, right? Solutions to everyday constituents, families, peoples, schools, and hopefully and usually it's going to be something that's rooted in something you're familiar about, you're passionate about, you have a burning desire about, or something that's affected you. Usually that's where we get some of our best ideas, is based on familiarity and gaps in everyday functions and things that we participate in, right? So I want you guys to think about, if you have no idea, you're not passionate just yet about anything, start thinking about some of the things you do day to day, some of your habits, some of your hobbies, things that you are passionate about, and then start thinking about, where are there gaps? Where are there constant hiccups? When you go to, an investors group, when you go to, my daughter's in dancing, right? Professional dancing, or if you go to any kind of clubs or religion, whatever it might be, look at some of the common complaints and some of the common issues that folks have, or what you just see in your family, and then start thinking about, again, I mentioned that kind of silly soap idea, which might actually be a major play, but I started seeing that it was a small issue that we all would rack up these little mini bars of soap in our bathrooms, right? It's an issue, right? And so where's there a potential solution or innovation to that particular problem, right? So that's one. In our solving, I think it's very important to approach all solutions, all opportunities with optimism, right? And being very optimistic in our thinking. It will not serve you well And I don't mean being foolishly optimistic. But being reasonably optimistic to a degree. It would not serve you well as an entrepreneur to look at the glass as always half full and to talk about what you can't do. If you adopt the mindset of not I can't do it or it can't be done, but how can it be done, right? And so that would be my biggest advice is whenever you hear the can'ts, immediately go to how can I, right? Reverse that T for an I and get into how can I? And that will, again, set you up for success as an entrepreneur, is getting into the how can I and not the I can't. And so that's how I approach life, is I always am thinking about things that, may be new to me, may be new to my demographic, maybe new to my peers, but then also always thinking about, how can we innovate and do things that have not been done before in the market. And so we're also, it's important to find your PGSs, is to lead and to innovate, right? It goes back to being that trailblazer. It goes back to being that pioneer, right? And in order for you to have an effective business model, be able to bring it to the world, which we know we need in order to catapult our entrepreneur endeavors and ideas, you gotta be willing to step out in front, take those risks, and to innovate. Do something that's never been done before, or do it in a way that has never been done before. If you're scared to lead and innovate, you're gonna have a heck of a time being a successful entrepreneur. You cannot do it well from the background. I don't mean you gotta be in the public, you gotta be, all in the videos. What I'm saying is that you, from a mentality standpoint, must always be thinking ahead, must always be thinking ahead of the curve, ahead of your competition, ahead of society in even some cases, and being willing to challenge the norm and go against the grain, right? And so a lot of your most successful ideas were ideas that opposed what was normal in society, or what was traditional, or I think it's the ability to break tradition really creates a lot of opportunities. Again, where most people said you couldn't, you start getting into where I can. And so outside of our optimism and our lead and innovate, we have our value adds, right? And so you want to think about where you can bring value add-ons to the world and value add propositions. And we'll make sure we got our value add oppositions. Some of you guys are going crazy at home. It's okay. So we want to make sure we have value adds, right? Our businesses, our PGSs, bring some kind of value to the world, to organizations, to constituents, et cetera, right? And so let's figure out where there's a need and where we can bring that value, that extra add-on, that value proposition of what you do differently, or what you do easier, or what you do more convenient, or what you do more fun, right? All those things, or what you do quicker, right? Or what you do bigger. All those things, again, have a value, and that value deserves a compensation. And is nothing wrong. I think one of the other things with entrepreneurship when it comes to our products, goods, and services is, and you're not used to selling, as an entrepreneur, you have to embody the fact that, there's nothing wrong with selling, because all your life, there's been nothing wrong with you consuming. And if you think of everything you've done, from your clothes down to your socks, down to your food, down to just a simple drink in the grocery store. We pay for parking spots. We literally pay for water. In some cases now, they're literally selling oxygen. There's literally selling air. You can pay for so it's nothing wrong with creating a value add opportunity and a service that can be, of value to someone. You need to identify that to understand what product, good, and service you should bring to the world. And then lastly, we're going to talk about services that educate, that ease, or entertain. And majority of our PSGs will fall into these guidelines, right? And so when I talk about entertainment, I'm talking about things that make you or others feel better. In some cases, we have our basic necessities like clothes, food, shelter. But in many cases, as we get into luxuries of those basic entities or necessities, you're going to look at the type of clothes we wear, the type of home we have, how we furnish our home, right? A lot of those things are based on our entertaining or amusing or being appealing to others. Some of these products, goods, and services, even simply as just owning a home, right, having shelter, is a form of easing, right, you through life. If you did not have a roof over your head, you will be exposed to the elements, and therefore life is not so easy. It's rough when it's windy or rainy or cold outside, right? And so most products, goods, and services are going to either have some form of educating, right, you, training you, or showing you something new. It's going to be a convenience that is going to ease your life, right, or entertain or be a attraction to others, right? And so no different than just say even getting a manicure. You can just simply at home, cut or pick or bite your nails, but from a form of you being more presentable and how you look to others, or just the ease of service so you're not doing it yourself. Again, you're able to create a service or good out of that. And so many of our PGSs are convenience factors. And what we found, and you'll find in business, is that people will pay for convenience. To have something simpler, to have it easier, to have it brought to them, to have it in a way that's more translatable or digestible, or a way that's, again, just quicker so that they can get on with their time. And so you want to, again, work backwards and think about what things that you can do that fit, that are value adds, that work in this time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so once you get down and create your PGS and you understand and then identify where you can generate revenue from that PGS, this is going to be the crux and foundations for you to be able to start to build out your marketing plan, which we'll talk to you guys about in a few, and your customer base. And then we'll look at how the organization and infrastructure that feeds this customer base, that brings in this revenue, how is it all pulled off, put together, and paid for? Once you understand your business model, you are now really literally able to start building out on the infrastructure and building out whatever participation you need to create a successful and sustainable business. Other than that, all you have is an idea. If you just say, hey, something's cool, I like it, wow, this could be a great app, but you haven't realized what's your revenue sources from the app, how do you get paid? That's one of the first things that I say to many students and coaching clients is folks come to me all the time with amazing ideas that do solve a need. They do offer a value add. They're actually very innovative, but they never identified how do I make money off of this idea. And so sometimes, you may say, hey, I noticed that there's this, for instance, there's this whole industry of gamers. People that play, video games, and they're all into games and all that. And so I have this concept to do something that can galvanize gamers. So you identify your customer base, great. And you identified a product or good, right? It could be an app for gamers, or it could be a restaurant or lounge for gamers. Actually, someone actually pitched that to us not too long ago, a particular lounge or opportunity, for gamers and, this particular customer base. But then it was, well, if we have people just sitting around playing video games, what's going to be the revenue source? How are we making money off that? Are we renting out stations? Are they paying an entry fee? Is it just off the food in the bar? Are there going to be advertisements or sponsors, right? And so those are all kinds of revenue sources, right? Sponsors, right? Ads, entry fees, tuitions, right? For any business, right? Whatever you're charging, retainers. Is it hourly? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? These are all kind of things that we have to think about when we say, well, how are we paid? by this customer. It's great that people need it. It's great that you've identified a product, good and service. But if we can't figure out how it actually creates revenue and profit for us, it's not a great business. Because without that profit, there's no point to even figure out how to pull it off, because there's no money to sustain this particular asset or idea. All right, guys, well, I'll see you on lesson 4 of our B business course in the RBCs.